Gwe, madawalotioch, hodasi de gwe wonokis cook, delgi galugnog, ginemusig, gizuk, grudului, dan delgi wel dasi, de gwe wijik, salmauk, emujik from the north. Hello everyone, I just started off in the Mi'kmaq language, just welcoming you here today. I would also like to acknowledge that we are standing on the unceded traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people. I'm proud to be here today for a historic day in the House where we've just tabled Bill C-77, which will establish a commissioner for modern treaty implementation and ensure our government and all future governments uphold modern treaty obligations. I'm joined here by Grand Chiefs and chiefs from various nations that represent the modern treaties. And I would like to start off from the Clicho, Grand Chief Jackson Lafferty.
Masi zagu ya de hoti masi na yisi. Da gahin chike da zon da nights in the same day Clinton government on ke hoti masi na yisi good na de da did zange de gonna yati go hasad la zon da modern treaty implementation commission hotla de aya what de da de gonna yati de sad line de ke za de na hoti le la ne ke za wogat ya zon de so yi minister masi wo phone de so nights in the same day, I got it, the Zende was a chilani, the Massi, the Nutshande. Hi, I'm Jackson Lafferty, Grand Chief for Clinton Government, and joined here by our leaders as well from the small communities of Clinton region. Chief Doreen Ourmaker is here with us. Chief Adeline Football is here with us as well. Massi for joining us on this historical day, a very important day, which has been long overdue, over 20 years in the making. We have had modern treaties for nearly 20 years, and are a founding member of the Land Claims Coalition Agreement. Since we founded the coalition in 2003, we've been advocating for an independent body to monitor, review, and report on the modern treaty implementation in Canada. The LCAC co-chairs and other members wish that they could be here today with us to witness this special event as a collaborative effort by all of us. Even though our treaties have the force of the law and are protected by the Canadian Constitution, implementing them has not always been an easy process journey and demands Canada constant commitment to action. We are pleased to stand here with you in front of you today to witness the Commissioner of Modern Treaty Implementation Legislation gets introduced and discuss its importance. The Indigenous partners co-developed this legislation that's before you. We fully support this document and seeking support from all parties for the expeditious passing of this act. It should not be a partisan process. It should be supported by all. We would like to thank the Minister and his office, the officials, for championing this document, this law that's coming forth, and leading a successful legislation co-developed effort. Also, like to thank the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, for his leadership and decision to establish this new commissioner. The Commission of Modern Treaty Implementation is an oversight mechanism. The Commissioner will report directly to the Parliament and have authority to initiate and also conduct reviews. They will access the Government of Canada's activities to ensure that treaties are being implemented and that the federal government is held accountable. It will promote effectiveness by providing feedback and also expertise to help federal officials focus on achieving the results that matter to us as modern treaty nations across Canada. The Commission will not replace implementation efforts, but will complement them by providing an audit function on government actions or inactions. This is an important step for reconciliation and marks a new milestone in a Crown-Indigenous modern treaty partnership relationship. Far too long, Canada's colonial system has not properly addressed modern treaties. This legislation is an opportunity to establish a mechanism that will ensure and also allow Canada to honor its treaty obligations and promises, and to work with us to make our treaties come to life in ways that direct impacts to improve the well-being of our communities and our people. Together, we are building the tools to ensure Canada's support the full, effective, and timely implementation of all modern treaties in Canada. At this point in time, I will now turn over to Kevin Mack of the Tokwat First Nation. Masi.
Thank you. Kluma kuat, uklama, yakawa'a, histakshitla, tukwata. My name is Kevin Mack, Chamata, Second Chief of the Tokwat Nation Government. I am here today at the request of Tokwat Tai Hatwat Witsatskum, Chief Ann Mack, and on behalf of the Manuth Treaty Nations, Hawaiiat, Kayuka Chuklasit, Tukwat, Yuchuklasit, and Yusluatlat. All 5 of us are treaty members with Canada through our treaties. The Manuth First Nations are situated along the west coast of Vancouver Island in British Columbia. After more than 20 years of negotiating our treaty, we are now in our 14th year of treaty implementation. We, along with other British Columbia nations who have signed modern treaties, being the Niska, Tla'amin, Tsawasan, look to Canada to fully implement our treaties. Through implementation, we carry on the vision of our chiefs and the chiefs who came before us. As a treaty partner with Canada, we are here to witness today's introduction of an act respecting the Commissioner for Modern Treaty Implementation in the House of Commons. Modern treaties are a comprehensive tool for reconciliation. Today is a significant milestone in Canada's efforts towards true results and true reconciliation. Fully implemented modern treaties benefit all Canadians. They clarify the terms of our ongoing relationship, provide us with the opportunity for self-reliance, political stability, economic development, and cultural and social healing and well-being for all. The new Commissioner for Modern Treaty Implementation, to be established through this legislation, will provide independent oversight by Parliament so that Canada is accountable for full, effective, and timely implementation of all modern treaties. We encourage the members of Parliament from all parties to work together to enact this legislation. Ushakshitleets, thank you. Chuch. Now I'll introduce Danny Gaudet, Chief Aqua Tede. Thank you.
Nakala, Nakala Gozo, good morning. It's close to lunch, but I'll say good morning. This is a historic day. Sizi Danny Gaudet onte, Satuko denonte. I'm with members of my council, Gwati Raymond Hanaton, and Kawe Doke, Dora, and Gina. My name is Danny Gaudet. I'm the Gwati Day. I'm the leader of the Dilene Gotine government, a self-governing Indigenous government. My people are part of the Satu Modern Treaty. Our community is Dilene. It's on the shores of Great Bear Lake. Great Bear Lake is the largest freshwater lake within Canadian borders. Our elders has given us the responsibility of looking after not only our culture, our tradition, but the lake itself. But they always tell us that this is really important, not only look after the lake for ourselves, but look after the lake for all Canadians. Because water will become the most valuable resource in the world. Our modern treaty, the self-government agreement, has been an important tool for doing that. For 50 years, the Indigenous leaders across Canada have been working very hard to implement our modern treaties. The Canadian government has not always honored their obligations in doing that. However, today, the Government of Canada has tabled the law that will create a commission who will be responsible for making our treaties making sure that our treaties are being implemented properly. The commission, with the modern treaty implementation, will report to Parliament directly. We will then be able to work with Canada to solve all the problems that we are faced with. The Commission has been recommended by the Parliamentary Committee. In the past, it is time for Parliament to act and hold and follow its own advice. A commission would be a huge step forward in repairing the relationship between Canada and Indigenous modern treaty holders. We urge all political parties to set aside their differences and unite and support for the reconciliation, the economic reconciliation, by voting in favor of this law. Our treaties are our future. They're the basis for all of us to have a good relationship in Canada. We need to continue to work together, and it's been a great honor to work with Mr. Miller and Mr. Anandasangaree to get to this point. I just wanted to thank my staff, all the other leaders' staff, all the other leaders, and these policy writers and lawmakers here. I want to thank them too, all behind the scenes, but they all supported this. Masicho.
Now I'd like to invite Minister of Crown-Indigenous Relations, Gary Anandasangaree, to the microphone.
Good morning. Thank you, Jaime, and let me begin by acknowledging that we're gathered here on the traditional unceded lands of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people. This is indeed a historic day for Canada. I want to just acknowledge the enormous amount of work that has gone into bringing us here today as we introduce Bill C-77, an act with respecting the establishment of the Commissioner of Modern Treaty Implementation. I want to thank the 27 modern treaties that have been critical in bringing us to this point. They have been fierce advocates for over 20 years to ensure that we have an oversight mechanism that is truly accountable to Parliament. And we're here because of the hard work of my previous speakers, Grand Chief Jackson Lafferty, of course, Chuchu Mata, Kevin Mack, as well as Chief Danny Govt, as well as many others who are not here today, along with their staff. I want to acknowledge my colleague, Patty Haidu, who is the Minister of Indigenous Services, my predecessor and the current Minister of Immigration, Mark Miller, who was instrumental in getting this process going, and I want to thank Mark especially for his leadership. And I'm also joined here by the MP for Northwest Territories, Mike McLeod, and Brendan Hanley, who's the MP for Yukon, along with Parliamentary Secretary Jaime Battiste. You may ask what a modern treaty is, and it's a question that I think many Canadians are really curious about. Modern treaties, the first one came into effect around 50 years ago, and since that time we have completed negotiations and implementation, or in the process of implementing 27 modern treaties. The latest one being the Whitecap Dakota in Saskatchewan that we signed last year. This summer, we initialed 3 modern treaties in British Columbia as part of the British Columbia Treaty process. That includes Kitsim-Kalem, Kitsalis, and Comox, and they're now going through the consultation phase, and we're hoping that they will be joining as treaty partners very soon. Over the years, the implementation of the treaties have sometimes been uneven. There are mechanisms that really lacked oversight and reporting to Parliament. So after deep consultation and co-development, we're introducing this legislation that will essentially enable Parliament to have oversight over modern treaty implementation. They have the ability to investigate, they have the ability to report, they have the ability, the Commissioner will have the ability, like the Auditor General or the PBO, to be able to report directly to Parliament, and they will act as an additional accountability tool towards this relationship. Essentially, we are reinforcing the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and for us it's action plan item number 9 that calls on Canada to establish Commissioner of Modern Treaty Implementation. It is also to ensure that the self-determination of Indigenous people, which are entrenched in treaty, which enable communities to get out of, for example, the confines of the Indian Act, is solidified by a mechanism that is independent of government, independent of nations themselves, and who can act as a sounding board to Canada to highlight some of the issues and perhaps even accelerate the speed of implementation. So this is indeed an incredible day for us, for the work that we've done, and I'm grateful for the leadership that's demonstrated across Canada. But this is also a moment for Canadian parliamentarians to show leadership, and that's why I'm calling upon each and every party, and I will be reaching out in the days to come, to ask for their support to get legislation passed in a way that will ensure that the Commission on Modern Treaty Implementation is established forthright and without delay. This is a nonpartisan issue. This requires us, and reconciliation as a whole requires all Canadians, all political parties to act in a nonpartisan way to ensure its swift passage. So with that, thank you, and I want to thank once again everyone involved in this process.
I would now like to open it up for questions to the media.
Questions for the Minister. Do you support NDP MP Leah Gazan's bill to criminalize residential school denialism?
I do.
It can't go into the House for debate unless your party supports it. Are you pushing your party to bring it in?
Well, as you know, we in Budget 2024, we have funding allocated towards addressing the issue of residential school denialism. It is an issue that's deeply hurtful, and it impacts particularly survivors and their descendants. So and I've been working with many within communities to address this issue. We're looking to see how the funds could support education as well as other means towards the denialism issue. With respect to the bill itself, it's going through a process. Right now it is, I believe it's been tabled, and there's a number of processes, and I will be working with our colleagues to see what the next steps are and how we can support the legislation.
And for this bill, how confident are you that this will actually make it onto the floor for debate and eventually passing it, given what's happening behind us for the last 3 weeks?
This is a nonpartisan issue, as I said. This is something, this bill was co-developed from the outset with Indigenous partners, with treaty partners. This bill didn't start a few weeks ago. This started 20 years ago as the demands of treaty partners to ensure that there's accountability. It's important that our government and any future governments do not politicize the relationship with treaty partners. And I believe that this is a moment for all parties to come together to support the bill. I am optimistic that this is an issue that should be nonpartisan. And if we cannot get cross-party support on this, I would be very skeptical on other items. So I am very confident in asking for support. I believe that there's a moment right now for us to demonstrate that notwithstanding political divisions, that we are united as one country towards reconciliation and towards self-determination.
What sort of teeth is this bill going to have? Like, what kind of enforcement mechanism will it have?
So first of all, it's funded. The first is over $10 million of funding over 4 years for the establishment of this office. In terms of the individual itself, the commissioner itself will be an officer of Parliament. So we have a number of officers. We have commissioners, Auditor General, for example, who reports directly to Parliament. We have the Parliamentary Budget Officer, and others who have a function of reporting directly to Parliament, and reports will be tabled. They have investigative powers. They also have powers, of really bringing forward gaps and highlighting issues where Canada may have fallen short or may have failed. So it's very much like, you will see that the Auditor General's report is cited routinely on a range of issues, whether it's in Parliament, the media, or outside in the world, within Canadian academia or civil society. So I believe that this is a strongly neutral body that can assess and report back to Parliament and to Canadians through Parliament on where Canada is, where the implementation may have fallen short, or where there's systemic failures on the part of government. And that is something that will inevitably lead to change, both within government, but also pressure from outside for that change to take place.
What does this mean for someone on the ground in Saskatchewan?
For example, Whitecap, Dakota is a modern treaty partner in Saskatchewan. We have a relationship that is confirmed through the modern treaty that we signed last year, and we have 27 modern treaties that have been signed across Canada and that are in the process of being implemented. What this means is that if there is frustration, then I'm going to ask maybe the leaders here to also speak. If we have important issues where we need to advance, for example, administration of justice is an issue that are in modern treaties, but the implementation has been slower. We will, this will be highlighted and this will be brought to the forefront as a priority. So I believe from a relationship perspective, it is an accountability tool towards the Government of Canada to act and to even change the practices, decolonize the way in which we're implementing and this partnership and this relationship evolves. I may just ask one of the leaders to maybe add to this.
Let's see, Minister. I believe this legislation will give us a tool to have a standard process where in the past, we've always talked about reconciliation is between the federal government and also Indigenous governments across Canada. As a Commission for Modern Treaty Implementation, this will expedite the process of transferring, whether it be departments, programs, onto the First Nations across Canada, a smoother transition. It has been a real challenge over the years. Now we're hoping to expedite the process, and we're very much looking forward to the rollout of this legislation. It has been a collaborative effort by all modern treaty holders across Canada. As the Minister indicated, 27 holders. We've been gathering on this for a number of years. 20 plus years has been in the making. It's here today, and we're very happy and also excited as we move forward together. So it is a bill that's coming forward, and it's will benefit people across Canada as well. Masicho.
Thank you. I'll just add to Mr. Lafferty. I think it's really important that we understand that the legislation will do a lot for us. We work really hard sitting at tables trying to negotiate what is inherently ours. And we've been doing that. We started off with the original treaties in 1921. In the Satu, we have the land claim from 1993. And Delaunay, we have the self-government agreement that we started implementing in 2016. Throughout the whole exercise of negotiating these things, our people are at these tables to kind of gain back their Indigenous rights of being just simply who we are. Hunters, trappers, fishermen, gatherers, and that was taken away from us through the residential school system, assimilation, and that happened over a 100-year period. We need to depend on legislation like this to help us get us back to where we want to be. It's not going to be that we're going to be hunters and gatherers anymore, but we have to have a new journey going forward. We want to maintain our culture, our tradition, and but we also want to be strong in this new modern world. Well, how do we get there? We need agreements to help us do that. So we sit at these tables trying to build a government relationship with not only our land, our culture, our traditions, but also with other nations. other governments, provincial governments, federal governments, and we have to work together in order to do that. This type of legislation allows us to do that because after we finish negotiating these things, we spend a lot of time trying to interpret what it means. And we sit there and debate with government saying, well, the original intent with this wording was this. Oh, no, it wasn't that. This commissioner allows us to have this conversation saying, this is the original intent. We want to create an economy. We want strong, healthy families. We want strong, healthy communities. But we can only do that if you recognize that we negotiated these agreements for that. And it's as simple as that. So now we have somebody that could actually help us do that, and we don't have to sit at tables years after the agreement's already negotiated, arguing about what this meant, right? So, Masi.
Now that this bill is out, will you work on creating a historical treaty commissioner given all of the problems with implementing those?
Thank you for the question. Look, we have treaty commissioners in Manitoba, Saskatchewan. We have a BC treaty process in British Columbia, which is quite unique to British Columbia. I think we're definitely open to working with treaty partners on potential for historical treaties. I know Jaime Battiste has been talking about this for many, many years. I do think a lot of work needs to go in before we can get to the establishment of a commissioner. It is not something that I've heard across the board, so there's different perspectives, and I think discussion on that, I think, will be important to lead the efforts towards potential commissioner that can address historical treaties.
So if there was like more of a public campaign for this commissioner, you would work to implement one? It's
not public campaign. It is to ensure that we do it right. Look, this is not about making sure that we do X or Y. This is about a substantive program that is rooted within the needs of modern treaty holders. So in this case, 27 modern treaty holders, they have been advocating, but more importantly, they've been co-developing this legislation with us to get to this point. So when I talk about historical treaties, I think a lot more work needs to go in. Starting off with the number of treaties, as well as a number of other litigation issues that are going still in the system, but to have some kind of a consensus model that may require us to have maybe not one but maybe multiple. So I think those are questions that need to be answered, and we need to come together on a consensus on what that looks like. But in principle, my answer is yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.